In October 20th, 1932, The Old Dark House was released after a lukewarm critics' preview held that summer. During the first stretch of the Great Depression, audiences flocked to watch a new trend of horror movies that would become legendary.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Some of those films, although relatively successful in their day, besides the most famous titles, suffered the passing of time and fell into oblivion. Such was the case of The Old Dark House. Praised on the week of its release by the New York Times as a stunning creation, it nevertheless ultimately lost steam and it was progressively forgotten in subsequent decades. In 1963, after the release of a remake directed by William Castle, it was withdrawn from circulation and considered to be a lost film. Since then, though, it has been rediscovered and restored thanks to director Curtis Harrington and ultimately reappraised as a fine example of Universal's pre-code horror productions of James Whale's talent and also as a staple of the gothic spooky house with uninvited guests and evil lurking subgenre. Hello everyone and welcome to the first episode of Criminally Underrated, a new series in this channel where we discuss films that may have slipped through the cracks but that deserve to be celebrated and rediscovered. This will be an ongoing series and it is linked to a list that I published this year through Letterboxd of 75 films that I feel are massively overlooked. And today we are here to talk about the first film that I included in that list, The Old Dark House, this atmospheric, really funny, and utterly entertaining pre-code horror classic.
Listen, there's a madman upstairs. Morgan's let him out and he's dangerous. We've got to do something.
The Old Dark House was a quite faithful adaptation of J.B. Priestley's 1927 novel called Benighted. The story places us on a stormy night in Wales where five people, Philip and Margaret Waverton, played by Raymond Massey and Gloria Stuart, their friend Penderell, played by Melvyn Douglas, and later Sir William Porterhouse in the flesh of Charles Laughton,
Have a potato.
and his lady friend, a chorus girl named Gladys, played by Lillian Bond, seek refuge in a gloomy country house up the road. They are given shelter by the strange Boris femme, played by Ernest Thesiger, and his sister Rebecca, played by Eva Moore, a religious fanatic, who live with their ancient father and their disfigured butler Morgan, played by Boris Karloff, who is also a mute. As the evening progresses, all these personalities come in contact. Dark secrets are unveiled and discovered in locked rooms. Drama, altercations, and chills ensue until dawn finally breaks and the storm is over.
Goodbye. So happy to have met you.
Encouraged by Todd Browning's success with Dracula and James Whale's own triumph with Frankenstein, both released a year earlier in 1931, Carl Laemmle Jr., son of Universal Studios founder Carl Laemmle, elevated the studio's horror unit productions to immortal heights, with an illustrious run of films such as The Mummy, The Invisible Man, The Bride of Frankenstein, or The Black Cat, in which, for the most part, legendary monsters were often misunderstood outsiders, appearing both menacing and sympathetic to audiences who grew to love and connect with them. The Old Dark House belongs to the celebrated period, but instead of summoning the horror from a foul scientific experiment or an unnatural creature, it resurrects the reliable old mansion at night kind of terror in the vein of The Cat and the Canary, a silent horror film released in 1927 and also produced at Universal to massive success. The Old Dark House was James Whale's second horror film, the awaited reteaming with Karloff after the prior year's mega hit. Whale was a notable British stage and film director who rapidly rose in Hollywood. because of his masterful direction of the Great War dramas such as Journey's End or Waterloo Bridge, the original adaptation. Whale mastered and pioneered the visual language of horror using chiaroscuro lighting, creating intense shadows and silhouettes, often to symbolize inner turmoil or moral ambiguity, which he incorporated also to great effect in The Old Dark House. Whale's sets, though not as exaggerated as in German expressionist films, often took on a gothic, skewed, ominous quality that added a sense of the uncanny and disorienting spaces, especially in the film that we are discussing today. But furthermore, James Whale's films were always characterized by leading with humor, a particular blend of dark wit and absurdity juxtaposed with terror. This ability is particularly evident in The Old Dark House, where Whale already self-satirizes many of the horror tropes that he and others before him had helped establish.
He's alive, I tell you! He's alive!
His blend of dark humor and the macabre is a hallmark of the film, adding a layer of irony and enjoyment to the genre. This unique approach was especially influential to American cartoonist Charles Addams, who drew inspiration from Boris Karloff's portrayal of the mute butler Morgan in this film in creating the iconic Addams Family character Lurch. Karloff, also the star of Frankenstein, took on his first leading role in The Old Dark House. Although it's an ensemble cast kind of film and his part lacks the depth of his previous collaboration with Whale, it's in the climatic scenes where Karloff's remarkable talent truly shines. No matter the size of the role, he excelled at conveying humanity, creating unforgettable characterizations that linger long after the movie finishes. Another first in this movie, from another master of unforgettable characterizations, is the presence of Charles Laughton in his debut Hollywood film role. As Sir William Porterhouse, Laughton delivers a performance that is delightfully overdone, offering a character that, while exaggerated, feels human and relatable. This blend of theatricality and subtle emotional depth would become an emblem of Charles Laughton's celebrated career, and it is an absolute pleasure to observe. The highlights of this movie, however, are Gloria Stuart, who truly shines as the quintessential scream queen in The Old Dark House.
Thank you.
And also Ernest, Thesiger. While Stuart is nowadays best remembered for her part as the older Rose in James Cameron's Titanic, her early career in the 1930s was predominantly known for her pre-code performances, which included a memorable stint in a couple of Universal horror classics, her studio at the time, under the direction of James Whale. Praised for her elegance and poise, Stuart starred also in The Invisible Man, released a year later in 1933. She brought glamour and strength to her roles, and although her parts in those films are mostly archetypical, her performances are also unforgettably classy, delightfully campy, and also very witty, qualities that would be also later immortalized in Titanic.
How reassuring.
Ernest Thesiger, a quintessential British actor, had already established a name for himself on stage when his old friend James Whale, now enjoying massive success in Hollywood with Frankenstein, invited Thesiger, who was then working in New York in a Broadway play, to test for the role of Horace Pham in his production of The Old Dark House. His wonderful performance in it anticipated his iconic portrayal of Dr. Pretorius in Bride of Frankenstein, released in 1935, an absolute James Whale cinematic achievement. Thesiger's influence on Whale's films helped shape their unique tone, merging horror with dark humor and camp, leaving a lasting impact on the genre and on those two James Whale films. Equally unforgettable was English actress Eva Moore, who plays Thesiger's sister, but though she is utterly iconic, I would definitely say that Thesiger walks away with The Old Dark House. What's most fascinating about The Old Dark House, and what makes it a pre-code horror classic worth exploring and revisiting, is the rich subtext beneath its seemingly simple premise. While on the surface, the film is not inventing anything new, underneath lies a web of unsettling family dynamics, particularly within the twisted femme family, as well as tensions among the uninvited guests, blending social commentary, humor, and an eerie atmosphere in the spirit of more contemporary classics like the Rocky Horror Picture Show. The Old Dark House also presents us with a fabulous cast of eccentric characters, each adding to the film's unique charm and each contributing to the film's exploration of class and gender dynamics, of conflict between Victorian traditional values and those of a younger generation, thus exploring underlying themes that were remarkably ahead of its time, even if those themes are only hinted at and never fully explored. In classic pre-code fashion, the film brims with sexual undercurrents, from Morgan's menacing interest in Margaret to Rebecca's repressed but suggestive aversion to her. And that's what makes it so enticing and relevant. Its experimental cinematography with distortions, contrasts of light and shadow, and clever framing, executed by Arthur Edison, who also participated in Frankenstein, elevates The Old Dark House into a visually haunting and creepy experience that perfectly complements its unsettling atmosphere and unique character study. The movie's theatricality and the committed performances of the cast deliver enough energy and charm to make it quite an unforgettable watch and make its flaws easily forgivable. I hope that you enjoyed it. You can check the whole list of these criminally underrated films down below. Let me know in the comments if you have already seen The Old Dark House. As always, thank you so much for watching and for your support. And until next time, keep watching classic movies.